Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It's another epi of League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you guys for a nice little jam-packed weekend recap. Marquee matchup, some things going as expected, and entire leagues in turmoil with who's the actual best squad, and we've alluded to it, and they passed the test this weekend. Team Vitality remain the most entertaining team on the Rift in the LEC, and one of the more hype ones to watch throughout the entire league, but they get it done against G2 in an absolute 50-minute banger on the Rift.
It was a brawl between these two squads in the LEC, and it delivered in a lot of the ways that you would have, hyped it up to be heading into the weekend, and the final result does deliver for Vitality. They get across the finish line, get that win against G2. Maybe a little bit less impressive or strong of a result against Shifters later, but still a win for the Vitality
You were expecting
squad.
them to lose that Shifters one after beating G2, so even getting the dub, you're like, okay, good job, fellas.
Yes, it still is a massively successful weekend for this Vitality squad, and another, that they can put into the bank that they have put through already in this split 2 that has been successful and has put themselves in a position to be one of those top squads in the LEC moving towards playoffs.
And Karzi, no question, is best Ezreal in the LEC, I think, although we'll get to someone else who's pretty damn good on that pick as well, apparently. But and you got to see shades of Humanoid showing up, the Lissandra engage that clinches the win for them, and you saw both sides of the Humanoid coin with your head-scratching moments, but the potential, and this guy still has some of the best individual outplays that we've seen over the last half-decade in EU, and reminded us of them this series.
Yeah, and I apologize because I was doubting it for sure. This was one of those situations with how everything had played out in the past 2-3 years at Fnatic, and some of those struggles, some of those really down points that you felt like this player didn't really have all that much to offer anymore in this environment. Never mind, steps away, joins Vitality, everything that goes on with behind the scenes there, he's back, he's reinvigorated, he's re-locked in, and my guy has been one of the steady, strong performers throughout the entire year, and I think he really is hitting his stride in this split 2 for Vitality.
And like the momentum of this team, because of the strange scheduling in the LEC, they've played like 2 to 3 more series than most other teams in the league, but they just keep winning. 5-1 now, sitting pretty at the top of the table, and like now immediately, especially with an easier schedule in the second half here, like front runners to finish first in that regular season.
And I think the question now that enters people's minds is, can you maintain this? Is it sustainable? Can you keep this level of focus, preparation, and everything into the next games, the games after that, and everything else? Especially, as you said, the schedule has been pretty crazy for them to start out the split, and it has been a lot of them. It's going to, lessen out as we move towards this later part of it. Can you keep that consistency? Can you keep the momentum going throughout this whole run? I think that's going to be some of the questions you could look at for this Vitality team in the later weeks of this split 2.
Yeah, and it's going to be, everyone is playing well. The vibes are great, but they only play 3 series over the last 4 weeks. 2 of those they're not on the docket at all, as they do some of these road shows that they're not going to be involved in. So hopefully they can maintain that momentum. Any of the momentum that Fnatic got from beating G2 was quickly erased, and yes, it comes to SK, which is a little bit tough. Losing to leaders Zed feels a little bad with how the first Zed games have gone this series, but really the story from this set is one of the most insane, actually impressive pentakills that we've had in 2026, and that is out of Yopa's Ezreal, giving Karzi a run for his money for best as EU.
Oh man, I thought I was watching the LCK. That looked so good, so clean, my man. And we had just seen, I think, relatively recently, some insane Ezreal play in the LCK. So to get this now in the LEC, and especially from someone like Yopa, feels pretty special to see. Now, it does feel pretty bad for Fnatic fans to absolutely stop any positive trend or thoughts that we're going to go through after the G2 series into this one, in the way that the performances went as you laid out. Leaders, Zed, not that that's, not something that can be intimidating or threatening, but it certainly has been something that has been more than handled and prepared against from everybody else in the LEC. So to be the ones that get that against you, that's not exactly the best feeling. And I think individually you could look at a lot of the players' performance in that series and have, been left wanting more.
Yeah, and listen, the Zed was handled for the first 20 minutes of this game until, Wonder and Mickey find some nice engages that he gets a triple kill and gets back involved in the game. But where is Vladdy? Where is the guy who was hyped up as the next top 3 contending mid laner in EU? Because 4 series in on Fnatic, I haven't seen him.
And this has been quickly a realization, I think, for Vladdy and for the community, again, on just what value it is to be able to be in a team that has other things going for it, right? That you can interact, can be positive aspects. There really isn't any of that going on outside of Vladdy's lane for Fnatic. So it's even hard for him to generate that momentum individually when then everything else that the other team has got gets thrown right back at you, right into your lane and right on top of it. So I think, again, there's some struggles individually for him. Sure, that's absolutely a fair point to say. But I think, again, it's one of these ones where the environment right now, there is nothing positive that is going to be born for this Fnatic team at this point.
It's really just, I feel bad for the diehard Fnatic fans having to fully suffer through what has happened so far here in 2026. So G2 sits at 1-2, and you're like, what? This team's like 6th, and Vitality's way at the top. But it's not just Europe that has been affected by this bizarro world post-first stand, because the LCK is looking more contested than the last decade has ever been in a split. Latest and greatest, Gen G already has 2 losses in the regular season, and of all teams, D plus Kia coming away with not just a series win, a 2-0. I think we have most definitely jumped timelines, Mark.
I think you'd have to go more than half a decade to maybe the full decade plus in the previous history to find a start for Gen G in a split like this that has gone as sideways as it has here. And not necessarily just out of, these guys are all washed all of a sudden just like that, right? Coming back from first stand, whatever. No, but the performance is not that same type of level, and the focus and preparation from everybody else in the LCK has been at that type of level, and they've been able to take them to tasks, talking about most recently a 2-0 from D plus Kia, finding a way through. Good series from your boy Showmaker as well. Like to see that, and this does make things, again, very crazy within that picture at the top of the LCK, especially when you have who has been the mainstay, not T1, not Hanwha Life, it has been Gen G as that mainstay at number 1, not number 2, number 1 within the region, and they are anything but number 1 in the region right now.
And listen, now 5 teams sitting with that 2-2 record, and I know it's still very early on in this split, but this is the split where your record carries over into next year. We're gonna split into the Fries and Legends group as things go, but like even Kiwoom DRX having the same record as T1 Gen G, I know it's only 4 series in, but this feels more wide open than ever. We're not just predetermined Gen G's gonna win. Yes, they look a little lethargic, not locked in early on, and expect them to be at another level when playoffs roll around, but for now it's KT's world, and we're just living in it, sitting there 4-0. Thought for sure they'd drop a dud landmine game against the Bros over the weekend, but not only did they win, they stomped them. We're going on perfect games for both of these wins almost.
And especially with D plus Kia beating Gen G with that upset, you had to feel like, okay, the LCK universe will recorrect itself here with the classic KT dropping to a lower tier team that they've had, and now that KT has had a good start. But it wasn't. It was clean. It was dominant. It was 2-0 from KT on the day, making sure that they stay in that dominant position within the LCK. We're on a path right now where one of T1, Hanwha Life, Gen G, heck, maybe even 2 of those 3 could find themselves in the Fries group type of situation here. This is the crazy thing about how this is stayed up in the LCK, and as you said, that this is the split where everything carries over and you do separate into those 2 groups. to have the struggles right now for these top, or what we envision to be the elite teams in the LCK is going to make this picture very messy and crazy moving forward.
Now, hear me out. We've had a couple world champions come in as a fourth seed from the LCK, complete the full run, but they've come from that Legends group. To go even further, we need a world champion to, hone their skills in that Rise group to be at the bottom, to fully climb back to the top. So I see the script laying out.
The true zero to hero route. I see it right now. Man, I'm telling you, the promo videos for that would go crazy if you're able to pull off something like that. The LCK's been crazy. It really has been. I think every region has had a little bit of some unexpected stories coming out of First Stand, but I don't think any region is topping just the landscape that is out there right now for the LCK and how drastically different it is than any type of prediction would have led you to coming into this split.
It just feels like, heading into the preseason or into the regular season, we had this big three in T1, Genji, Hanwha, and a middling tier of a bunch of teams. It just feels like everyone has been pulled kind of to the same level. Maybe now you have KT, Hanwha ahead of everybody, but it's so close from like 1 to 6 in the LCK, and it's going to be an absolute barn burner to close things out. Again, we're only 2 weeks in, so a whole lot more games to go on the Rift. We had a whole lot of LCS games as well, and not really any big upsets or anything, but I think both Lion and Cloud9 needing 3 games to beat Dig and Sentinels are, surprise enough, and really a bit messy from both those squads.
Yeah, you would have liked a more dominant, more clean performance from both of them, especially, again, leading the charge for the region, but it still is one of those ones where you get the W, you get the result that you needed at the end of the day. So how much do you really want to drill into them? How much do you want to criticize and look forward type of thing? I think for at least this week, and again, knowing the LCS, you get a little bit of a pass in these situations where maybe you weren't at your full focus, full level and execution, but still that level was good enough to get done on the day. It's going to be one of those ones where you want to see that tighten up as we move through these later weeks. But I think kind of given everything that's gone on in the LEC, in the LCK, and even in the LPL to start out this year, having a more or less predictable results weekend in the LCS is kind of a good thing at the end of the day.
And we can add another champion to the APA champion pool with the Scion mid paired with the Malphite. We like that combo?
No, I do not like that combo one little bit. I will admit, yes, I like seeing experimentation, expanding and all these things going on with Team Liquid, and still the result was okay for them. But I don't think I like the actual visuals of how that composition was looking.
And also another niche pick that we've seen before. We got another Vayne sighting out of Big Dokes. An even better performance than the first time he played it in playoffs.
Yeah, and I think that is more what we wanted to see when you are seeing a Vayne pick come through in that top side and be that difference maker, truly someone that is going to be that disruptor and change how things will play out there in that top side, and then into, obviously, the later team fights. And I think Dokla was able to execute on the Vayne to a really good degree in that game.
The other 2 series were a little more dominant, one-sided. I think 2 guys you can highlight. One from each. First and foremost, T-Law, that's Team Liquid Alienware, in case people haven't paid attention. Morgan absolutely stepping up over the weekend, back-to-back, I'm going to say dominations over Fudge on that top side.
Yeah, and this is one of those ones that you need to see if you are Team Liquid, right? When you brought in Morgan, there was obviously some degree of question marks, again, Freddie Breon and all these type of things and whatever. But the individual, when you examined in the gameplay footage, you knew that this is the type of stuff that was capable, especially in an environment like the LCS, where you're not going to have these megalodons or these giant great white sharks lurking around. It's just a couple of tunas, maybe some small bass around here. You can feed in this ocean, in this pond, and I think we got to see a little bit of the sea monster that your boy can be in the top side.
Yeah, and this is a guy who we were ready to throw right alongside Thanatos to kind of be that premier top laner. Didn't really get much of it in the first split, and it's been revving up and, yeah, came out of the waters in this one to get the clean series win for them. And then the other side, maybe the biggest surprise of the weekend in terms of LCS, is not FlyQuest beating DSG, but how badly they beat them down. These were far and away the two biggest stomps of the weekend, and you absolutely got to see the hands that the FlyQuest bot lane has, and especially Cryogen was dancing on them this weekend.
Oh man, it was smooth, it was slick. These guys were doing good things out on Summoner's Rift, especially as you said. That bottom lane duo, Masu and Cryogen, really liked what we got to see out of them. And I think for this FlyQuest team, it was, again, phenomenal, 110%. It was all great. You're left still maybe with 5%, 10% disappointment of going, man, is Dig really this bad? Are they really not, as competitive as we have seen? But I think that has to be the closer answer right now, given the way things have gone. But yes, focusing in on the good. Happy for FlyQuest, and I think this is another result that can help them with some confidence and momentum as they eye up some of these higher up teams in the LCS.
And I think really good for the confidence for this younger squad, because Griffin had a great series as well, completely destroyed Kryra in that matchup, and this is a team that's like the last 10 games they've played on the Rift. It's either been against Cloud9 Lion or even Team Liquid last weekend, which were competitive. But to play against a team that's not considered a top tier LCS squad and be as dominant as they were, gotta give so much of a boost to this squad.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where it almost is kind of, and again, not counting anybody out type of situation, but it's one of those ones where you can take a breather on your schedule. And the fact that you were able to take that breather, grab a drink of water, and still be able to lock in and get that win through this weekend is a big thing for me when you're talking about FlyQuest.
So let's see if they can level up and test some of the big guys in the LCS, because, again, Lions already lost to Cloud9. There's no LCS team that you're putting head and shoulders above anybody else in the league so far.
No, and it's certainly a situation, though, where you are climbing. You are going to have to improve and become a stronger team, an individual, all sorts of things, right, to take those next steps in the LCS. But it absolutely is not like, oh, my goodness, this is a straight vertical climb. It is a set of stairs that you can take one step, next step, and keep moving forward and making that progression. And I think this was a good weekend where I think at the very least, even in one where it might not seem like, 2 steps is available to you, I think the execution was there to leapfrog 2 steps this time for FlyQuest.
Sticking to the theme of standings and entire regions being thrown into chaos here in Split 2, the most consistent driving force has been that squad that won first stand, as the LPL continues the theme of its BLG and everybody else. I thought there was going to be an upset for Weibo, who, we were thinking so little of them. That's always when they show up the most to get a big win against BLG, but not only was it not the case, it wasn't very close. We had a 13-0-11 night performance, and finally had some team fights where you're highlighting Viper.
And that is the important thing here, because I don't think, you're not going full sail and giving the full seal of approval that this is stamp the passport, Viper has arrived in the LPL. It's not that type of situation, though. But it certainly is more of the warm and good signs that you needed to see from him individually for this BLG team to truly enter that monster type of territory, which rightfully deserve to be, given the results so far this year that they have been able to put forth. I think getting more signs of that type of Viper and his contribution and synergy with the squad is that next step, and that's the one step that's holding you back from being in that top ultra elite tier of the world, where I think rightfully so, given the first stand result, BLG deserves to be.
It's been that final check mark you've been hovering, waiting to do for BLG. I don't have it yet, but the pencil's sharpened. It's ready. It's primed and ready to give them that little check mark. And now we're seeing the main rival competitor rising up is this new look Top Esports, fresh off a series win, 2-0 in fact, probably shouldn't have been 2-0, but took down JDG. They've already beaten AL, and how about some respect? I mean, Jackie Love, we knew would hit the ground running, but for a guy who gets so much criticism, Tien has not missed a beat since he came back into this lineup. Looked like he was an MVP in Split 1, but my guy didn't even play a game.
gonna say this feels like 3, 4 years ago when Tien was dominating the LPL. He is back, and yes, he hasn't missed a beat, and he really has been such a key, crucial change for this top esports squad. Of course, so much of the conversation can be about Jackie Love and him returning to the team and what type of aspect he brings for that ADC, especially the value of an ADC in the LPL that can dish out the damage and skills like that. But for Tien and the role that he has played within this team and how he has set up his members, worked the map, worked positioning, I think he really has been one of those difference makers and is someone that throws, again, top esports into that conversation of the top elite level squads that you've seen in the LPL.
And again, in a split or at least a year where there were basically no or hardly any roster changes globally heading into Split 2, TES comes in, changes 3 out of their 5 members. I know Tien, Jackie Love have played together, but Juan comes in as a rookie to replace 369, and all of a sudden this team looks like a premier LPL team.
And that's one of those ones where I think there is still some uncertainty about whether you will get a 369 returning to this roster. How does he reintegrate with it? How quickly is that? The synergy, all these type of things, whether that even happens and whatnot. All that type of thing still is that uncertainty, and I can understand that maybe putting off some people about wanting to jump in on the bandwagon for top esports. But I think that the results so far from the other 4, and even, again, as a replacement, as that 5th member in the top side, it has been strong enough that I am willing to go in and buy in on top esports this Split 2 in the LPL.
Especially they can drop in again, outside of BLG, this entire region is wide open for them to kick down the door and say, nah, we're the main rivals, time to go back to an international. And I feel like, based on how things have gone, I think people might slightly be more confident in top esports going international right now. I don't know. We're only 4 games in.
It's a tough hill to climb, I think, for the organization in general. But I think individual players like a Jackie Love being on this roster and the way that things are playing, and again, if Tien continues to show the form of 3, 4, 5 years ago when he was one of the premier options or the premier option in the LPL, this certainly will be one of those squads that you can talk about in that type of prestige of the LPL.
At least the team feels like people are rooting more for than they did in years past. So shout out to TES. Let's keep it going. But that is it today for Liga Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you. Absolute stunners. Thanks for hanging out. You know we'll catch you on that flippity flip.